Hey everybody. Conor Reich, appreciate you jumping on, and as always, really appreciate the sub, man. Cactus, what's going on? All elite. How's it going, guys? It's been a little while, huh? Been too long, really. So appreciate you guys hanging in there and joining. Hopefully getting this started up again and more of a regular stream. Yeah, we're finally getting a chance to upload some more. So you probably, if you're subbed on YouTube, you probably got notification for a couple more videos. We got 4 loaded earlier, and then I think we've got 10 more from the archives that we'll get on there. And then going forward, it's such a pain to rip the videos down and load them up, but really need to do that to make it kind of more available. Sorry, it's taken so long to do that, but as always, appreciate you watching the videos and the content. Some of that stuff is going to be a little dated, but we'll do our best to get some information updated. And the goal tonight is really to talk about the roadmap and kind of get back in the swing of things, like I tweeted out. But soon we'll do I'll do a refresh of the folded score calculator, and not a lot has changed from a racing and breeding dynamic since Thanksgiving. Since late November, or really the last few months. But obviously, it's good to touch back on some of the topics that we covered over the summer into the fall. Because there are a lot of new people racing. There are a lot of new people in the ecosystem, and those of you who have been with us for a while or since the beginning, it's always good to kind of get a refresh of that information. So give everybody a couple more minutes to float in, and then we'll hop into the roadmap and go from there. So as always, appreciate you guys joining. Any questions you have, launch them my way, and I'll do my best to cover them either as we're going or come back to them once we get through some of the roadmap. So. Missed MJ's stream earlier. Did anybody get a chance to catch it? It sounds like he did a bunch of giveaways and stuff today. So seems like he's stayed pretty active. Snooze, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Yeah, I know he's branched into Riot Racers and Wizards and a good bit of other stuff. And like I mentioned before, in November, as TRV, hopefully they'll hit the game at the end of the month. They've got the drop upcoming. We can talk a little bit about that toward the end of the stream. But yeah, I mean, our content, or my content, is going to stay ZED. I'd say 75 to 90%. And we'll see. Like I mentioned before the holidays, CJ is kind of taking a break from streaming, so it's probably going to be me for the time being. But we'll see if we can get him looped back in, and we'll definitely still have BG on. We'll probably have Cryptog on here. Hopefully, even get MJ on or something. Do some co-streams and stuff like that. Hey, Metaverse Gaming, what's going on, guys? Yeah, kind of, Greg. Like I said, I appreciate the sub, and I obviously appreciate those of you who stuck with us, but also appreciate those of you who are coming back and getting right back into it with me. So, um, Bojack, what's going on? Hey, Andrew, how's it going, man? Long time no talk. You've branched out into some other games too. I've watched a couple of those videos, seen at least a couple of them pop up on my feed. So, but good to see you still floating around with us fuddy duddies still working on ZED Run. So, um, with that though, let me jump in and talk about the roadmap. Jump right into that. Hey, Gulf Coast, what's going on? So, as I'm sure all of you have seen, yeah, cactus, man, it's tough. It's you know, feel like you can never pull money out, right? Have to put it back into breeding and finding new horses. So, I'm not quite that deep, but it's it's been a ride the last 8 months, ups and downs and ins and outs. So, um, hey MJ, what's going on? We were just talking about you. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, I was debating whether I wanted to wear my ZED Run shirt or not, or my XYZ shirt or not. But went with the little pullover today. So, but appreciate you dropping in. I saw you had a pretty lively stream earlier. I didn't get a chance to catch much of it, but sounds like it went pretty well. We're just jumping into the roadmap. So, like I said, as I think probably everybody in here saw, we had this big release right before the new year, end of December, talking about a lot of the new features, a lot of the plans, the timing. Hey, Gutters, what's going on? To me, this was great. They dropped some hints that they were going to do it, and then they came out and said, "Hey, here's what we have planned. Here's all the new features. Here's what we've been talking about." Yeah, they only put quarter one, quarter two in here, quarter three, but at least they're setting timelines, publicizing timelines. I think that's a positive thing. So, kind of going into each of these, and again, if you guys have questions, please, drop them in, and we'll get to them. Yeah, kind of great. Wag me. We'll see. I don't know them too well, but I'll have to put out some feelers and see if we can get some big stables on to talk about things. So, so first big thing, we've had a lot of talk about this since really the fatigue rolled out in August and the changes later in the year. I think there's healthy debate here about what ELO will look like, whether it will be a net positive for racing, and there's a lot of uncertainty here. So, I think that paid racing is not necessarily, it hasn't really been focused on too much. We've obviously had a big focus on these tournaments, which has its pluses and minuses. And I think the class system that they rolled out, the wider bands and the negative points for eighth, the flatter curve on the back end, what we've gotten to, 5-3-2, and then -2 for the last places. I think it's been pretty balanced. The problem is just with the extra focus on tournaments, and a lot of breeding that's happened. And we'll get into some of those numbers later. We'll have to see if this will rebalance racing or get more people into some paid races. I'd still love to see 5% races, but overall, a lot of uncertainty on ELO and what that'll look like. So, obviously more to come. I hope you guys kind of filled out the survey. They definitely have. I don't know if you guys have noticed on Twitter, but they have it seems like more active kind of user experience team. They've dropped some hints on Twitter of what's to come, and so I do think that I didn't get a chance to fill out the survey, but I do think that they are doing their best to take kind of user feedback into account, and that's good to see. So we'll have to see. I'm sure the system that they roll out will have some issues. Some tweaking will be needed, but I think it'll be good overall to see what system they put in and how that'll affect kind of different horses. So that Q1, I think it'll be positive, but we'll have to see. Tokens is another one. A lot of uncertainty here. But overall, we've been talking about DES for a while. I've been in the camp of we shouldn't see DES until all of the Genesis horses are dropped. I haven't been super vocal, but that's been my really strong opinion. It doesn't make sense to set when they were originally talking about DES back in April, May, March, earlier even of 21. It didn't make sense to me to drop a token to Genesis holders before all of the Genesis horses were out there, the market was established, and so that the rentals I'll definitely touch on. So yeah, we'll have to see what that looks like. But I think overall, the idea of a token system, the idea of rewarding us as horse holders for the long term is a good one. It seems like they've gone away from just Genesis, and based on kind of some of the comments about type of racehorses owned here, and then overall number of racehorses owned. So I think it has its pluses and minuses. I'm hoping that they kind of balance things appropriately. But not everybody can own Genesis horses. Not everybody has the ability to pay for a Genesis horse. So I think this is a more inclusive way to get people who have held bred horses for a while and have been involved with the game. I think it's also a net positive. So, but if you see here, there's going to be tokens related to breeding. There's going to be tokens related to racing. And then lending and guilds. We'll see what that looks like. But overall, having Republic involved seems like a really good thing. And then I think if they implement the token system and make it dynamic, then it'll be a good thing for the ecosystem. You kind of need a native token in an ecosystem like this. It's just a matter of balancing it correctly. Let me see. Mitch Gal, that's a good question. I don't necessarily think the lower pools need to be reduced. I think we've been a proponent for a while of increasing the class 1 pools. I'm hoping the token system will reward people for racing in higher classes. And then the other part of that, like we were talking about with ELO, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, right? So the class system as we know it might very well go away. They might do some sort of banded ELO system with some number of bands. Maybe it's still called class 1 through class 5, but I don't really want to speculate just because there are so many possibilities of what they can do with it. And kind of Greg, that's right. I mean, overall on the token system, it's basically like rebuilding the ecosystem they've already built and then adding a lot more complexity to it, right? You have to get the economics right. It's not just buying and selling horses and Zed making money off of racing and breeding and sales. It's making sure that those tokenomics are balanced, and it's not a simple thing. So um, it'll be really interesting to see what we see. All of this is planned for Q1, so we've got what is it, 10 weeks, 11 weeks left in Q1. So it's a lot of stuff, and I know they've been doing a lot of work in the background. So hopefully we'll start to see that in the coming weeks. Yeah, Bojack, that's a good point on the airdrop to the bot mills or the breeding mills or the bot holders. I do think one, they talk about, I'm kind of hovering here. They talk about lengths of ZED Run ownership. So it sounds like they're going to be able to kind of track wallets based on some concerns people had about transferring horses between wallets. And then the flippers that are kind of sitting on a lot of the low value horses, they're not necessarily holding horses for a long time. And those horses, hopefully aren't going to have a ton of value, right? If they scale it appropriately for bloodline and breed type, a lot of those bots are holding a lot of kind of lower value legendary Buterins, lower value exclusive Buterins, the horses at the floor. So I think they can kind of counteract that. So we'll see. I mean, I'd like to see some sort of value measure, but that's also tough too. Just because a horse sold for 0.01 ETH or, that it doesn't mean that's what that horse is worth. It also, the transactions off market and the transfers and stuff like that. I don't know if we can necessarily establish that, but again, as long as it's scaled by Z number and or bloodline and breed type, I think there should be a balance. So we'll see. I'm my time away over the last 6 weeks has not been because I've lost interest in Zed. I have even more horses than the last time that I streamed. I bred a bunch of horses for the last maiden tournament. I plan to do the same for the maiden tournament coming up next week. A bunch for me is 10 or 12 or 15. I'll probably be at the lower end of that for next week, but it's all been work related. It's all been traveling for the holidays, stuff like that. So I should have done a better job kind of keeping everybody updated, but I think that we are where we are. We've got this roadmap. We're in 2022 now. We're still cranking on Zed. And so let's do it. So another point here, active stable holders. So I think people who race a lot are going to see more tokens first. Long-term holders, people who have been in since 2019, 2020 are going to see a heck of a lot of tokens. We had Rob on from Great White and Genesis Stables a while ago. And, he's going to be one of those guys, Lucky Jack, Doofy, those guys have so many Genesis horses, so many low Z horses. They should be rewarded, right? We wouldn't be here without a lot of those guys. And so I'm glad to see that they've kind of kind of giving out those details. So, and Conor Greg, that's right, man. It's biggest year ever for sure. And, the sky is the limit, especially we'll get into it. Some of the hires they've made are just outstanding hires. Yeah, exactly. The OGs deserve the tokens. They brought a lot of us here. And we'll see what that looks like. So racing, they've talked about, obviously they talked about the class system, and they've hinted at continued updates to racing. We've seen tournaments come in. We're seeing 7,000 to 8,000 races a day. We're probably going to hit 1 million races next week, which is just absolutely insane. I think we weren't even at like 100,000 races through April. So, we've had almost more than 100,000 races a month since then. And in the recent months, we've had more than 250,000 races. So, different tournament types, special conditions. They hinted at the 0%, the 5% races before. We'll have to see what all those are. I know a couple of the guys that I talk with daily are excited about the Buterin tournaments and the color tournaments. Some of the stuff that the zombie racing guys already set up. I think them being out kind of front and center as the streamer that's been working with Zed a good bit. I think their tournament series has inspired some of Zed's thinking. So I'm glad to see that. Big one before racehorse retirement, but before that, let me make sure I catch up on questions. Yeah, Bojack, I don't know. I don't have the comment handy, but either Jeff or Rob came into chat a couple of days after this was announced, and there were some big concerns about people moving horses, and I move horses every month to breed. So I've had most of my Genesis horses sitting in a couple of wallets for a while. But a lot of my mares, I move back and forth between wallets every month. And they specifically said that, they're not going to penalize people for doing that. So again, remains to be seen how they're going to achieve that. If you're comfortable sitting with horses in separate wallets, I'd say do that. But if there are a couple that you want to move over and race, I think they'll figure out a way to distribute the tokens fairly. So again, not financial advice, but I'm moving horses every month still. So, just do what you're comfortable with. I wouldn't move every horse, but definitely the ones that you're more active with, I'd do whatever you're comfortable with and whatever's easiest for you. So, racehorse retirement, this is a big one. We've talked on stream about a burn mechanism. We've talked about kind of what is the right system, and some of the stuff that they've hinted at, right, kind of providing token value and dollar value for retiring horses, bred horses, specifically. I guess, yeah, non-Genesis. Good. I always have to pause and come back and make sure that they're not going to allow retirement of Genesis horses, because that would blow a lot of stuff up. I know different people have different opinions on that, but I am glad to see that they specifically said non-Genesis horses. I think that's big for the ecosystem. And we'll have to see kind of what value they do there, but that is Q2. So a little bit further out. So we'll see kind of the racing changes. We'll see some more tournaments. We'll see different things. We'll see the token system come out, and then we'll see once that's balanced, I think that's when they'll plan to roll this out. I would be surprised to see this before the end of the end of quarter 2, just because it is such a change to the ecosystem. And honestly, the market is pretty healthy. Again, we'll get into some of the market numbers. The market's pretty healthy right now. There are a lot of horses being sold. We're back to, call it August, July volume numbers. Not quite there on the pricing, just because of the uncertainty around, around racing and what that'll look like, I think. But you are seeing a lot of Genesis floors start to creep up. You're seeing floor sweeps a good bit. You're seeing some of the lower Z's start to creep back up in value. Bojack, I doubt they'll do profitability. Maybe your net payout or your gross payouts. But I would think that they'll be more inclined to reward volume and reward activity over profitability, just because that'll be, that's tough, right? Even though 20+% of horses are profitable. And I think even more now that you're getting a lot of free raced horses that win a little bit of money in tournaments. I think it would be really tough for them to reward profitability, just because you only have the top couple percent of horses that would really qualify for some of those higher token payouts. So Crypto Benno, appreciate you joining. I see your first time chatter. Yes and no. I mean, look, there's so little that we know about the token system. We don't know if we're going to be able to buy tokens. We don't know if we're going to be able to trade tokens. We don't know if there's a separate token roadmap where they're going to try to balance value or assign value. I do think, I've kind of paused here on the racehorse retirement, that you will have dollar value assigned to retiring racehorses. And so you'll get a token payout and or a dollar payout for that. And to a large extent, yes, but as far as taking money out of the game, but there's still money to be made, studying out your horses and racing your horses. Again, maybe not as much as there was back over the summer. But as the market continues to improve and as some of these new kind of game dynamics come in, I think you'll see a recovery to some extent of the breeding market. I think breeding has kind of stabilized. If they run a maiden tournament every month or every 6 weeks, you'll see studs start to be valued. But yeah, I mean, especially if you're breeding in-house a lot, if you have a handful of horses and you're breeding in-house, really it's making money from racing, maybe a little bit of stud fees, and then selling your horses. And again, I think the market is stabilized enough to that you can make money selling horses still. You're just not making 4 to 6 to 10x on your breeding fees on unraced horses right out of the gate, which I think that had to happen. But I think with the breeding fee decrease, we've seen a nice balancing. There still are a lot of Genesis horses listed at minimum in the stud barn. But again, everything is kind of related, right? Everything is a cycle. We're in a relative uptrend for the market now. I think racing is maybe not as strong as it's ever been, but still very active. And so you should start to see that in the breeding market. Like I said, especially if we have a maiden tournament every month to 6 to 8 weeks. I think that'll be good. So let me catch up on some of the comments though. Yeah, Crypto Beno, again, phasing out ETH. They do mention they're phasing out ETH, but who knows the timeline on that? I mean, they could implement a token system March 31st, and then we've had things that were supposed to be temporary. We've had changes that have been made that stayed in the game for 3 to 6 months, and so I would be surprised if you see ETH completely phase out in the next 6 months, if not a longer period of time. We don't know how they're going to compensate tournaments. They mentioned a $10 million kind of racing war chest. So I think there still will be dollars related to racing. But to your point, on the breeding side, if they do go to full kind of tokenized breeding, that income stream could go away. But again, you're still able to sell those horses, especially kind of strong racers. And so we'll just have to see how they balance kind of racing payouts and dollars in the system or ETH in the system versus the tokens. So, and then to Conor Greg's point, that's exactly right. There has to be a market for the tokens. And so there has to be some sort of value in them, right? If you can only pay for breeding with tokens, and you have to have tokens to breed, then there is going to be value in that. So I completely get the concern. There can be things that go wrong with the token system, right? Absolutely. I don't like that we've shifted to a ton of free races. I'm not a big fan of free down classing. I know I get into debates, I feel like every other day about that. I think if you should have to factor in the current class system, getting your horse back down again into your expected profit. And right now there's no real disadvantage to running all out for every tournament. So but yeah, Crypto Ben, I mean, if you look here on the earnings, and I know Bojack mentioned he kind of viewed this image separately, but in my mind, this earnings USD, I think there's, they make money off of every sale, and until they phase out money from breeding, they make money off of breeding too. And so if you're trading in your horse, if they made money on the breed, I think they're going to kick back a percentage of that. Again, I don't have any inside knowledge or anything like that, but that's just my kind of speculation there. And again, Crypto Beno, that is a good point on buying the coin. A lot of ecosystems have a coin that has separate value, that has a separate market established. Not a lot of hints or ideas in this roadmap around that. Most of it is around the horse ecosystem itself, but I think we'll just have to see what that looks like. Again, your concern is a valid one. I think that implementing a bad token system would be bad for the game, and we just have to hope that one, they do it right, which I think Republic will help with that. I'm glad they announced a major partner for that, and then hopefully they'll take feedback from the community, and kind of work that in like they have with racing. It's taken them a little bit of time, but it's clear that they've taken feedback and made changes based on that. So, and Conor, Greg, I am the biggest proponent of playing the game to what the meta says right now, right? I have no issue with downclassing. I'm happy to shout that from the mountaintops and say that on every stream that we've ever done, right? It's just the free downclassing that I think there could be more done to, you can only free downclass during Fibonacci tournaments or large tournaments. Whereas the A shape or the other tournaments they're doing or maidens, I don't think you should be able to free down class. I think that would be a good compromise. Yeah, Crypto Ben, I'm glad we're having. By the way, I know we've gotten a little bit off of the roadmap, but I'm glad we're having this conversation because I think it's a really, really important one. Andrew, man, every time somebody brings up play chip, yeah, I mean, look, they had a partnership there, or they thought they were going to have one, and it didn't work out. So, but Crypto Benno, I don't think I don't think the money is a problem. I mean, they have some huge venture capital backers. They've made a lot of money off of breeding, racing when they had the rake, and more importantly, sales. In fact, I can actually pull that up. So, I mean, they've made. It's not a ton, right? But they've made 724 ETH just in sales fees, which is, can't do this math in my head anymore. And it's only $2 million, right? But as far as kind of listing fees and all of the money around that, I think if they wanted to do that and they could prove value, that they would have investors willing to put money in and or use some of the money that they've made. This is less than 6 months of sales fees. So yeah. Hey, Civil Lobo, what's going on, man? It's been a minute since we've caught up. Let's see. Right. Well, Bojack, yeah. I mean, I get on my comment about the A shape and trying to downclass, not being able to downclass and freeze. All I'm saying is that I think they could balance. I think they could alternate weeks. I think they could do more to kind of flip on and off. And as long as they communicate that, I think that would be an enhancement to paid racing. I think the reason that paid racing is so tough right now is not because we've seen 40,000 horses come into the ecosystem in the last couple months. It's because nobody runs downs in paid races anymore, right? Except for me. I'm the dumbass still running downs in paid races, but everybody that's trying to run ups, or everybody that's trying to make money is racing paid races, right? And even people who are trying to qualify for tournaments with strong horses, they're running paid races and they're balancing some frees, and then they're able to just run free downs all the time. So I don't think that running $2.50 downs or even $5 downs cuts into profitability that much, especially with I think that the enhanced competition and the kind of more balance, more parity with your monsters on top of that is more harmful to profitability in paid racing than having to pay for some of your downs. So, yeah. Let me get back to some of these comments though. Civil's question: do you think the free races provide more wins to? They do, and I do think downclassing allows more horses to succeed in free races. But what's the benefit if weak horses win some free races and qualify for tournaments? They're going out in the quarterfinals. They're not making any money. And so all you have is these horses that might be able to make tournaments, might be able to race well, but they're not profitable, right? So again, I think there's a balance. I don't think you have to completely get rid of free downclassing, but I think it does more harm to the racing ecosystem than a lot of people realize. And yeah, Andrew, on the ELO system, who knows, right? You'd assume that those races are going to be weaker. So depending on how they do it, if your down points are based on your competition, if the free races are weaker, then you're going to receive fewer down points for those. So maybe that will help. But I think there are too many unknowns to really have a strong opinion one way or the other there. So let me pop back into the roadmap though. And so racehorse retirement we talked about. I think it'll be good to get some of these bottom of the barrel horses out and have tokens to feed back into more breeding and or dollars to kind of recoup some of your breeding costs of the donkeys that you can't sell. I know personally, I probably only have 8 or 10 or 12 horses that I'd probably consider this, and they're bottom of the barrel legendary Buterins or lower. But we'll see. We'll have to see what that looks like. So, and then another big Q2 topic is rentals. So, like somebody mentioned at the beginning of the stream, it's looking very, very, very unlikely that we're going to have any sort of drop that's going to raise money and allow people to buy Genesis horses directly. And so, and I, a lot of the content that's come out, a lot of the statements have been about accessibility of horses and people being able to being able to be involved with Genesis horses. And yeah, I mean, it's we'll have to see what the system looks like, right? I haven't really thought a lot about renting. I think renting of kind of existing stable horses that people own, that might take a little while to take off, just because it's like breeding, right? If everybody puts their horse in the rental stable, then you're going to get 1 or 2 picked off every once in a while. But who knows? Who knows what that'll look like? I'm gonna allow Cactus. I'm not one to name names on stream usually, but yeah, it's it is what it is. There are going to be people with large stables that are going to do what they're going to do, and whether it's renting more horses or renting out every single one of their own horses. So no, you're good, man. You're good. So yeah, but kind of right to your point. I mean, the potential for rentals just to completely blow out racing is exciting, right? We'll have to see what that looks like. For a while, when we were talking about horse rentals, I wanted to see it kind of the stats separate. Um, but we're kind of at the point now where, um, I don't know. Surface stats still matter for horse sales and breeding and other things. Um, but I wrestle with it every day of racing some of my weaker horses in freeze just to see what they'll do. I'm not as good about that as some others about just kind of pumping a lot of volume. So, hey, Heroin, what's going on? I didn't see I didn't see what Archibald or anybody else did, but we were just talking about kind of horse rentals and what that would look like. So, um, and yeah, Crypto Bennett, that's right. I mean, you've got, and it's funny you mentioned that because Heroin just stepped in and he's doing a similar system on a much smaller scale. But guys with larger stables, they can't. It Guys with hundreds of horses can't run all of them, right? So, I think one thing that's not in the roadmap that'll be interesting to see what happens with it is some sort of trustless kind of lending system or jockey system where you don't have to trust the people that you're sending the horses to. You can just have horses available for people to run, and kind of like axes. So yeah. Um, Clown. I mean, for rentals, it's an alternative to running donkeys, right? If you want to, if you have horses that aren't selling or you don't want to sell, but you don't have time to race, then it's a way to kind of get those horses back on the track and get some sort of small compensation for that. So yeah, that's and Conor Greg, I love that idea. The 0% win rate tourney, something like that, where you have the best the worst of the worst donkeys racing for the glory, and having people kind of get in and get experience with those. So yeah. Again, unfortunately, look, there's a lot of good content here. I love seeing kind of quote unquote hard deadlines, even if they are just quarters. But there's so much uncertainty here. But the good thing is they're kind of talking, putting this on paper, publicizing what they're doing, really strongly communicating their plans. And we've seen some of that the last year. I know there are a lot of complaints about, about the communication. But to me, it's great to see something like this of here's what we're doing. And again, even if they miss some deadlines, we know kind of what the plan is and what things look like and what they're working toward and what we can expect. So even though there still is uncertainty in racing, even though there still is uncertainty around the token and what breeding will look like in 6 months, I think the communication and everything that's happened over the last few weeks, the last few months even, has really kind of lent itself to or translated to stability in the market. So yeah, Connor, right. 300,000 donkey entrants. That's right. That's right. I mean, that's right. We're already at like 150,000 donkeys, right? So just dump them all, dump them all in one tournament and let's go. So yeah. And then, we again, kind of tying rentals and tokens and everything we've been talking about, wider distribution of tokens. So, people will come in, be able to afford to rent a horse versus buying it, potentially make some tokens and some money racing, and then be able to get more involved in the ecosystem. So, and Sybil, that's right. I mean, that is one one good thing about free races is how smooth they are. Paid racing is really tedious at times. Dropped races, getting booted out of races, stuff like that. But the I think the stickiest or the worst part of that is choosing your gate and hoping that it's that it's not taken, and trying to get into some of those races in time. And they've definitely dropped some hints that I don't know how soon it'll be, but the kind of auto gate selection just put me in the race is definitely coming. Some of the user experience staff from ZED on Twitter have posted some things. So that's another, again, positive development for racing. So let's see. So, and then more about kind of tournament commencing Q1. We've already seen some of this, different tournaments, kind of increasing focus on tournaments, more eligibility conditions. So it'll be really interesting to see what different types of tournaments and races we see over the next couple weeks and months, as a lot of this stuff is rolled out. Party mode, I'm going to skip over. I know a lot of people love party mode, but I think it's good, but that is definitely one. Rentals, I was saying, oh, maybe if the rental pool is separate stats and doesn't kind of contribute to the overall, I've softened on that. Party mode, I don't want those stats to count in the horse stats. Those need to be separate. They need to have a separate class, or like a class designation in the API, and we just need to be able to kind of take those out. So, but I think overall, having users be able to start up tournaments against each other and start up races against each other will be a good thing for user engagement, especially for all of us. So you might not see me joining in a lot of party mode races, but I think a lot of people will have a good time with that. So, yeah, exactly. So, obviously the XYZ stream is more kind of information education based. We may have some events, especially if I can carve out more time, we may look at doing that. So I'm not completely poo-pooing party mode, but I've already talked about it more than I wanted to. But again, for the Pony Plug guys, for the zombie team, for everybody else that's for Metaverse Gaming guys, yeah, exactly. I missed y'all's stream, but I know you guys have a big live tournament coming up, so guys, definitely hop over to Metaverse Gaming and drop them a follow and keep an eye on their Twitter, because I know they've got some big stuff coming up. So again, that's not really my style, but I think we need the one good thing about this community, right, is that we can all kind of do our different things and think about the game different ways and share kind of how we're thinking about things and grow together, right? So, obviously first of all, appreciate that you guys stuck around and are hanging out, and appreciate everything you guys do. And MJ, I don't know if MJ is still around, but obviously appreciate what he's doing too, and everybody else. So yeah, Heroin, you guys are going to be able to convince me. I'll have to bring out some of my decent racers and actually try to race against you guys at some point. But we'll see. The first step is obviously getting streaming again, which this tonight was a big step in the right direction. So obviously, appreciate you guys supporting there and jumping in and chatting, and we'll see what we'll do with everything coming out in the next couple months. So Quest versus the rest, I like that a lot. Yeah, I like that. There's a lot of things I can do with my Quest racing name for sure. So, and then the last couple things here, seasons I think are big. We'll have to see what that looks like as far as racing stats and how we track lifetime versus seasons and daily and stuff like that. But I think this is overall positive. I think having goals with set time limits is always going to drive engagement, drive racing. So I think this is good. And especially having the token kind of be based on that. Yeah, again, we've been hearing for 6 months about the leaderboards, so we'll we'll have to see what that actually, when that actually comes out, what that looks like. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about from the roadmap, which I don't know how many other people have touched on it, but one of the most positive things about this roadmap update is this kind of section about reputable network and then team growth. So obviously we know about their investors, you know, Matt Restivo. I don't know. I don't have a sense for how many people are involved with on sports betting side of things or kind of outside of NFTs. Action Network is a somewhat controversial site on the sports betting side. But, you know, he's a big name and they've built out a great platform. And so seeing, you know, key people that are involved with FanDuel and Action Network and kind of big platforms where people can both compete against each other and you know, track their performance and have statistics, kind of everything put together. A couple big names here, and then most importantly, you know, obviously all the racing stuff is great, but I loved that ZED took the time to talk through all of the people that they've hired. Call out that they now have over 100 full-time people. That's huge. You know, we were at probably 30, 40 over the summer. Maybe I'm just guessing. I don't know exactly kind of what the growth has looked like. But all of the hiring that they've been doing, all of the changes that they've been making to the organization, you can see some of these names that they've brought in to head those groups and to head the teams that they've built out are big names. So along with the improved communication and all the goals that they have for this year, you know, to me, the biggest name on here was Ted Gay getting involved on the commercial operations side. Twin Spires is a super successful horse betting website in the U.S. And it's, you know, it's all tied together with Churchill Downs, which is obviously one of the largest tracks in the States. This is really positive. I've actually had a conversation with Shannon on the marketing side. You know, he's done some big things with Accenture. He's been involved with a lot of big digital transformation projects. So that's really positive. Having data scientists involved, that's good. Sportsbet's another really interesting site that's grown a lot over the last few years. Again, Alex has been active on Twitter. She's talked a lot about user experience and there's been some good communication there. So you see, you know, and I'm not even touching on all of them. We obviously talked about Robert or Roberto when he was first hired on the engineering side. So huge positives here. The team's really grown. Again, very positive, very bullish across the board here, right? A lot of good changes, a lot of good communication, and the team that they're putting together is super strong. So Aquila Nudes, I'm in the what is it, Human Park Discord. Who knows? I'm probably not going to participate there. You know, I do like that they came out and they stated that the teams are separate. I think it's really key to, you know, have a dedicated, strong team for a startup. And I think between the hires and how they've kind of segmented things out at Virtually Human, I like to think, or every indication that I have is the ZED team is committed to ZED, and they're, laser focused on improving the user experience, laser focused on getting all the stuff that they've laid out in the roadmap into the ecosystem. And so I'm not worried from the ZED side, but I'm not really focused on that. Love the question though. Heroin, I don't remember that for the ZED betting. Again, we've talked about that a little bit there. I'll pull that question up. Again, this really needs to be off platform. It needs to be completely separate from ZED. And obviously they can be tied together, but there has to be a clear wall between the racing and the betting. Virtually Human really can't be involved with that betting, or there's a ton of regulatory issues they'll face. So I would be happy to see some sort of a partnership with a betting platform. But we need to see a kind of division between ZED and anybody else that they're partnering with. Because that, especially in the States and the UK, and potentially even Australia, I think you'd have a bigger headache there if you have some sort of like betting system that's on the platform. I just don't think you can do that. So Andrew, man, you're throwing the barbed questions out today. Look, I mean, honestly, like Alex is a pretty direct replacement. Sportsbet is a huge site that does analytics on sports betting data, and they both have they have a free platform and a kind of pay for platform, and so I have a feeling that on the data side they're covered, whether it's Alex or somebody on that team. But I'm not going to take the bait on talking about Tim. So, hey, Bojack, appreciate you jumping on. Have a great night. Appreciate you staying up late with me. So, all right, guys. I think that's roadmap. We've killed about an hour kind of talking through that. Nothing really to see here. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got the millionth race coming up next week. So, that'll be interesting to see if we have any sort of events around that. But either way, a huge milestone for the platform. Hopefully we'll get to 1 million paid races next year. But we'll have to see what that looks like with the tokenization of racing as well. But real quick update. I talked about, let's do sales first. So I talked about the total volume. You can see my pretty eye chart with all the colors. But if I zoom in on these charts, so this top chart here is average ETH price for horses on the left, and dollar value of horses on the right. And this is all sales on OpenSea, all of the market data, the kind of average value per day. So yeah, Conor Greg, if you're leaving, appreciate you jumping on. Obviously, hopefully we'll see you again next week, and I'm going to be a little bit more active on Twitter too. So keep an eye out there, but appreciate you jumping on tonight. So moving from the roadmap into some data, some of the data that I usually share with you guys. I've updated this as through yesterday, and so you can see, pricing hasn't really recovered as strongly as we might have hoped, but you do kind of see a general uptrend, especially in the last week or two, that you kind of see the huge uptrend, then you see fatigue roll out, and then you see kind of the changes in early November that kind of restabilize the system, and you see a kind of a bottoming out and then a slight uptrend in pricing. But to me, the most interesting thing, and I'm really happy to see this, is the volume. So here, this bottom chart, the blue bars, how high they go is the actual number of horses sold on OpenSea, and then the orange line is the total sales volume. So that's just average price times the volume, and so you can see here, around that pricing, you haven't seen a huge recovery. Again, a slight uptick in the last week or two. But since Thanksgiving, since I stopped streaming, the last time I streamed, we've seen a huge uptick in volume. And a lot of that is around this December 28, 29, around the roadmap and some of the announcements around, Genesis horses and stuff like that. And so, this is really, really positive. And I think as we see a stabilization in racing, and as we see things continue to recover and these new features roll out, I think we could see the market start to turn up. Because if we look at breeding, if we look at breeding, even with that maiden tournament, you really have kind of started to see. I'm not sure why these exclusives are doing this to me, but you saw kind of if we scroll back up to the top here, October, November, December. Obviously, we had a huge breeding month in July. We had a couple resets in there. We continued to see huge numbers in August and September. And a lot of that is, in addition to the issues with racing, you had a huge influx of new horses, as we all know, right? Over 10,000 exclusives bred a month in August and in September, which is kind of what we expected to see. And then, again, even with the maiden tournament, you only saw about 20,000 horses bred in December. So it's not really this huge exponential kind of uptrend, right? It's stable kind of growth of new horses in the ecosystem, 15 to 20,000 a month. And we're 2 weeks into January, right? And we're at 8,000. So we'll see some more horses that get bred. We'll see some more horses that get bred for the maiden tournament. I think we'll see an uptick. We have the reset, the monthly reset for the Terra, and April 2nd drops, and June drop, the Echo drop. That's coming up in the next couple of days. So I think all of that will kind of see an increase in numbers, but I would be surprised if we see more than 20,000, 22,000 horses bred in January. And you see kind of a much more balanced, more concentrated in exclusives, but you see a balance between legendary, exclusive, elite, and even down to cross and pacer. I mean, shoot, we had 2,500 pacers bred in December, getting ready for those pacer tournaments that are coming up. So, hey, Lucky, what's going on? Yeah, appreciate you joining, and appreciate the resub, the 4 months, and appreciate you staying staying with me while I took some time off. So good to see you. And I was saying earlier, you guys will see, for those who joined a little later, you'll see that I uploaded 4 videos to the YouTube, to our YouTube account. I've got 10 more kind of archive videos that I'll load with the dates that we streamed, with a little bit of information on those. And then I promise I will do better about ripping these videos over to YouTube as soon as I'm able to. My plan is every weekend carve out a little bit of time to do that. So keep an eye out for that, whether you watch the replay on Twitch or hop over to our YouTube channel, which is the same XYZED Talk, and catch it there. So yeah, but breeding much more balanced. I think, again, all of this is kind of contributing to the market recovery we're seeing and the general positive trends we're seeing. Again, I'm not saying go out and buy a bunch of horses. I'm not, advising on anything. I'm just kind of telling you guys that the things that I'm seeing and the positive things that seem to be happening the last couple weeks, the last month or so. So awesome. Yeah, I still don't have a Z5. I've never freed up enough capital to jump back into to the Finny market. I think I missed the boat there. But yeah. Andrew, I haven't looked at the percent of profitable for a while, probably the last month or 6 weeks or so. When I last looked at it, it was still 25% plus. But I think that free races are really skewing surface stats and really skewing. You have a lot of horses that are just running free races, just trying to qualify for tournaments. And so it's tough. And then especially if you're looking at kind of tournament profits versus racing profits, that's kind of a distinction you have to make. But I like that is a good question, and it's been something on my mind, and I'm going to make a note to take a look at that for a future stream for sure. But yeah, for the Z5s, I've been telling myself I wanted to buy one for a while, and they were floating down there in ETH or less for a good long time. But I tied up a lot of my capital in buying 2 Z2s. And so that's kind of where I am. I still have 2 Z2s. I have a Z3 Genesis mare as well. And so that was more my focus. But yeah, Andrew, that's right. And I think that'll be a key in seeing some of these tournaments that they build out and seeing some of the revamped race system and seeing some of the revamped class system. The counterpoint that I would make on not burning profitable racers is you're also not going to race. You're not going to burn a horse that you're racing at all. Right. I don't think you'll see a substantial change in competition or profitability because a lot of those horses just get raced and kind of put back in the stable. So just pulling up that question so that it's documented for anybody going back and watching the replay. But yeah, I mean, it's the burn or the retirement mechanic is big. And there's always been a debate around kind of how to incentivize people to do that and put that money back into more breeds or whatever. But again, from a racing competition standpoint, I think the biggest factor affecting racing competition right now is the fact that nobody is downing in paid races. And so you just have a concentration of strong horses running. If we flip over to the racing data and I zoom in on some of these charts down here, Unfortunately, if we're looking at, I think this is a good one. So if we're looking at just paid races here in the top right, um, you really have seen this kind of flatlining of paid racing, is kind of stabilizing around 1,500 races to 1,800 races a day. We really don't break through that. A lot of that has been kind of lower dollar value. You don't have nearly as many $25 races as you used to. Part of that is because they took away the $25 races in the lower classes, but where I'm going with that is paid racing is still relatively strong. But if we're looking at a burn mech or retirement mech, I don't necessarily think you'll see a change. I always go back to if you alternate free downs and you switch up that system a little bit, I think you'll see a shift in who's running what races each week. So yes, news. I don't know. I think it's you've got to be selective with your race choices, and two, strong distance preference horses are going to down no matter what. So as long as you're higher on the chain than others, then you can get in there. And so, again, I think those horses are going to be profitable no matter what races they're running. If you trim a little bit off the top of their racing profitability and make them run in paid downs, they don't make that much less money. And I mean, marginally, right? Because you can still run 250 downs, but even strong horses running 250 downs opens it up for weaker horses to be able to make more money in 250s. So, yeah, Conor Greg, I participated in that poll. I don't remember if I put I think I put 10 to 25%. I think I'm in that bucket of kind of 8 to 10 to 12 horses. I still haven't broken 100 horses, but it's mostly because I've been able to sell a little bit of my glue off as we've gone. So we'll have to see. I mean, people can respond to that poll all they want, but when the rubber hits the road, I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of tough decisions to make when they're burning horses. So, or retiring horses. All right, I'm just looking at my kind of topic list for tonight. We talked a lot about the roadmap and all the information in there, all the positives, some of the uncertainty, some of the negatives. We've talked a little bit about market data and racing data and breeding data. I mentioned kind of getting YouTube updated. Hey, Motherload. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of good horses running 250s right now. So I'm one of those prideful guys that, specific horses that I own, I refuse to run in 250s, but I also don't race nearly as much as a lot of people do. So, as long as you're not stuffing it in every 250 race, I think you should do what you want to do. But if I get out there and see you stuffing in every 250 race, I might have to call you out. So, Lucky, yeah, we talked about the token a good bit. There's actually a a good bit of conversation we had. A couple of people asked some good questions there about the tokenomics and what it looks like, and we talked about the pluses and minuses. Overall, I think it should be positive as long as it's implemented correctly. And they tweak it as needed as they go. I think having Republic as a partner, just kind of going back and touching on some of the high points, having Republic as a partner is a positive development, no matter how you look at it. And I think it'll be good to have everything kind of based around that, rental system, feeding into breeding and feeding into retiring horses and stuff like that. But the counterpoint that somebody else raised earlier was, if you're taking dollars out and the only way to monetize is to sell your horses, um, out, rather than being able to make both tokens and WETH racing, that could be a pain point in the ecosystem. So yeah, again, net positive if it's done right, but there are some things that could definitely go wrong, and we'll just have to see what the details look like as they come out. So nice, Motherload. Yeah, I don't know a ton about Republic. I know the name, and generally that they're very well regarded, regardless of what Zed put in their article. They definitely have a name out there in the space, and so it's I any kind of big name partnership that's announced, especially as publicly as it was, is a positive there. So I'm gonna drop down my screen, so you get to see my beautiful beard. So I've talked through a lot of the data. I've talked about the roadmap. We've had a good conversation there, and so what I wanted to do, I don't necessarily know. I know we've been going about an hour and a half. I don't necessarily want to jump into horse analysis tonight, unless anybody has burning questions. I see a lot of my regulars in here tonight, and again, I really appreciate that, guys. A few new faces as well. I think the goal. So I want to flip it to kind of what I want to cover over the next couple of weeks. Talk a little bit about that. And then if there are questions about what we've talked about today, I'm obviously happy to stay on for a little longer and talk about those. And then if there are specific horse questions, we can maybe jump into those, before I sign off. But so my plan, again, is to kind of get back into doing this once a week. And also I want to have racing pop-up streams where I help with racing analysis. It's gotten a lot tougher with free racing. It's gotten a lot tougher without having odds. So I am not nearly as confident as I was 4 months ago in being able to provide very specific advice. But as far as racing analysis goes, I'll definitely be doing more of that on stream. Convincing those of you who don't think flames matter that they absolutely do. And, talking about all of the racing components. The big thing that I want to do over the next, call it 2 to 6 weeks, is touch on a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in the past. I don't want you to have to go back and watch YouTube, but to the extent, obviously, if you haven't dropped a follow, please do so here. If you haven't subscribed over on YouTube, please go do that. You will see a lot of new content or old content there. But what I want to do is kind of go over some of those concepts that we covered in a lot of detail in August and September. And that hasn't really changed, but I think it's good to talk every so often, every month or two, about the racing environment and what it means for horses and how to look at things. And then my other goal is to talk about the folded score. The next stream I do, hopefully, obviously next week, we'll be talking a little bit about distance preference and variance and how some of those things manifest themselves in horse stats, reading flame charts, going back and looking at odds data on old horses that can still be used as benchmarks. And then I'll talk about folded score and to some extent base ability. I have talked to Shady a good bit. For those of you who know Shady, he's done a lot of work with Kruger on building out ZED. For those of you who haven't heard of that, a lot of that is based on, some of the stuff that CJ and I and BG talked about back over the summer, and base ability and looking at folded scores and stuff like that. And so I'll probably jump into that and potentially show some of that on stream as well as Edge. And then, the goal is, again, this is hopefully the first stream of a lot in this new year. Hopefully we'll get some of these new features so that they kind of those features will lend themselves to content and helping everybody kind of figure out what that looks like. Cactus, I do have a quarterly pass. Shady actually hooked me up as part of helping develop some of that stuff. They had a couple leftover quarterly passes that they gave out to, I think, a couple of the content creators and a couple of the guys that were involved with some of the discussions there. But I don't use it a ton because I breed a lot in stable, which is kind of to my detriment because I don't have a lot of strong horses that I've found. But I will be able to show some of that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to convince Shady to get on stream with me. But we will talk a little bit about that. And I don't want to cover the specifics there, but did want to mention that. And then Cactus, let's take that. Oh, let's see. It looks like I'm back. All right. So sorry if I dropped or things froze up there, guys. So Cactus, let's take that offline. I don't know if you're in our Discord. I think I've seen you floating around. But yeah, those of you who haven't joined the XYZ Discord, there is a link below the video, and there's also a link in About Us. Click on that, hop in there, and shoot me a DM or just at me in the horse share that we have the channel in the Discord, and I'll take a look at that one for you. Motherload, so folded score high level, and I'll show you the calculation again on the next stream. We do have the file and the resource in our Discord if you want to hop in there and or hop on the info links channel if you're already in there. But high level, it's basically any horse with finishes mostly 1 through 6 are going to have a net positive folded score. And generally you're going to want to look at that at middle distances because you're not as influenced by distance preference there. So 1400, 1600, 1800, you do still have a little bit of distance preference at 14 and 18. But in order to have race volume, enough kind of sample size to have a good score or a good idea, oftentimes you'll need to look at all three of those distances together. 1400 and 1800 kind of cancel each other out. So, I think that's kind of how we look at it. And again, that's what the ZED is based on. And so again, I'll have a stream here soon, hopefully next week, about folded score, a little bit about the ZED, and a little bit about some of the other racing stuff. So I might split racing and breeding out into two streams, but that's the plan for the next couple weeks. So that said, again, the plan is for you guys to see a good bit more of me. Part of the reason took 6 weeks off is I did start a new job, same company as I was at, but kind of doing new stuff. And it took a lot more of my time than I expected. Yeah, Motherload. Yeah, it's strength at 1600 or more finishes to the left at 1600 is generally indicative of breeding strength. But again, there is a lot of kind of randomized results there with distance preference and variance. But those racing components I'll touch on again soon. There are also a couple streams that I've moved over to YouTube that specifically talk about distance preference and variance and racing. And then ZED Insights, Andrew had a couple interviews with CJ, me, and BG about racing and data analysis and that. So if you haven't subscribed to Andrew's the ZED Insights YouTube channel, I would definitely suggest checking his stuff out. And you'll have to dig through some other stuff that he's been working on, some other projects that he's been taking a look at. But a lot of good ZED resources there if you want to check that out. So, but yeah, guys, I'm gonna actually go ahead and get off for the night. So really appreciate all the support, everybody joining back in. It's good to see all the familiar names in chat. Crypto Beno, and good to see you're still here. So yeah, so this is on. I actually got it off of Amazon, so you can just go on like horse nightlight on Amazon, and there are a couple different options, and it's a USB plug-in, so you can plug it in anywhere, and it comes with a little remote that lets you change all the colors and stuff like that. I love this thing though. So, and then I'm not going to hawk the merch site, but Retro Racing has helped us out with some merch that, we've got hats and shirts and water bottles and coffee mugs and stuff like that. So definitely check out his site. It's a Stable Swag, and I'll pop that up on a future stream again. But yeah, really appreciate you guys joining tonight. Again, appreciate all the support. Really happy to see kind of 25 to 30 of you stuck with me tonight and joined in and asked some really good questions. And, again, I'll hopefully see you again soon, next week, almost for sure, if not sooner. But thanks a lot. Let me look if there's anybody online. Usually Thursday nights we used to raid Sean Versal, get a little bit of high energy going, some ZED bets, but I know he hasn't been on for a while, so I don't see really anybody that's on tonight. So I'm just going to go ahead and sign off. But thanks again, guys, and I will see you next week, if not sooner. And please feel free to hop into our Discord and ask any questions you have. We've got a lot of good guys in there that have been playing for a while, and happy to answer anything that I didn't cover on stream today. So